Yo guys, welcome back. It's CJ here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to defend on FC25, the best, most effective method of pressing, and I'm also going to show you how to switch cursor, the best way to switch cursor. Make sure to like this video, subscribe. We're on the way to 500 subs, so make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the video if it helps you. All right, so let's get into it. So before I start, I'm going to show you guys the settings that I use. Right, so I use competitive, precision, time finishing on, defensively now. I use for clearance assistance. I use directional. Right, so when you clear the ball with your circle, for me I use custom. So when I clear the ball with my box, it goes to the direction I clear the ball. I directed, right. I use advanced. Also switching with assistance, I use none. Right stick switching, I use classic. Um, then player relative here, sensitivity on 6. Next player switching, closest to ball. Reaction time off, player lock on. Alright, so there are essentially two major things that you need to know and you need to master um, if you want to defend effectively. Right, the two things are right stick switching and secondary press. Right, secondary press is basically just holding your finesse button. I use custom, so it's basically just holding your finesse button, right. That's how you secondary press. And right stick switching is using your right stick to change cursor, basically. Now I'm going to just explain briefly how to right stick switch. um Now let's say I'm a player, right. I use player relative, so I use my player. I'm going to use this term, my player. I use him as the POV, right. So if I'm in my player right now and I want to switch to somebody here, all I need to do is just flick my right stick that direction. So if I have a player now, for example, I have this player right here, Yashin. If I want to change the cursor to Rabio, this player over here, all I need to do is just flick my right stick this way. Just flick my right stick this, it will flick. Now that's how you change cursor with your right stick. But one thing that you should always just have in your head is who the current cursor is on, right? Because that determines where you're going to right stick switch to, right? If I have the cursor here, right, and I want to switch to him, I'll flick my right stick in this direction, right? I can also flick it here if I want to switch to her, flick it a little bit back if I want to if I want to switch to her. Now that's basically how you just right stick and a right stick switch. Right, so let's analyze this clip. Now I want you to take note of my cursor changing my secondary person. Now, if you notice how I won the ball just now in this clip, my opponent is passing the ball very, very fast, which is a problem that most FC players face, right? When your opponent is passing the ball very quick, you just kind of lose sight of cursor changing, and then your defense just becomes scattered. But you have to stay composed. Watch this. So he's passing the ball here, right? And then he takes it back. When he takes it back, what should I do? I switch my cursor to my striker. Now the ball is ahead of my striker. I switch it to my winger. Why do I switch it to my winger? Because I want to bring my winger backwards. Why? Because I like to press with my wingers, right? It gives me more options to defend. It kind of makes the whole game compact, right? So that's what I do. I flick my right stick to my winger from my striker, right? While secondary pressing with my striker, you can see what I'm doing. I'm bringing my winger into the defense, right? When I do that, he passes. I switch again. Now he does that. That winger that I brought back, he wins the ball for me. All right, let's look at another clip. So you can see here how I win the ball. My opponent has a corner. He passes the ball here. And immediately what I do, you can see these two people here, Griezmann and Olise. I have the cursor on Griezmann, secondary pressing with Olise. Now, one thing you should know about secondary pressing is that, first of all, secondary pressing, when you press your secondary press button, that's your finesse button, right? A green kind of triangular cursor appears on the top of their head. Now, one thing you should know is that when you press L1 while secondary pressing, it switches cursor to the person you were secondary pressing with. You can see it here with Olise. Now, he's trying to attack, right? I'm secondary pressing with Olise. My cursor is on Griezmann. I switch to Griezmann. I switch cursor to Olise, secondary press to Griezmann. That's why I'm just interchanging, right? And then he just keeps going back because it's two people literally against him, behind him. So the only choice he has, right, is to go back, which is what we want. We don't want them in our area. We don't want them around us. You can go back, right? So secondary press with Olise, cursor on Griezmann, and then that's just how we win the ball. So you have to learn how to alternate between secondary press and cursor. Just know that the person you're secondary pressing with, if you press L1, the cursor changes to that player, right? So we win the ball, and then now we have a counter attack. Let's analyze this clip, right? So my opponent is on the attack, right? He passes the ball down the wing. My cursor is on Theo Hernandez, right? I'm just trying to anticipate what he's trying to do. Basically, that's what I'm doing anytime I'm with a defender, right? I'm trying to anticipate what my opponent is trying to do next. So watch, right? He might cut inside. So now he cuts back, right? I switch my cursor to Rabiot. Now the reason for this is because there's something called recycling on FC25. Basically, if you take your player now, for example, to the wing, like where he is right now, and then you take it back, for example, there's always going to be your CDM around here that you can just pass ball here. So that's something that you have to be very wary about on FC25, right? So I can see him cut back, right? So he wants to make this pass here. What I do now is I change my cursor from my Theo Hernandez to my CDM Rabiot, right? When he does that, he makes the pass. Now, my Rabiot can go to meet this person, right? But no, I want to use this other CDM here, right? In case he wants to make this pass. So that's what I do. Now he makes the pass. I use my right stick. It was my right stick that I used to change the cursor to her, right? And then I've gone to close down. Now I don't need to charge too much. I just need to cover the passing lanes, make him go back essentially, right? So he passes. Now he passes to his winger. I've switched my left back, right? He tries to take the shot, block, right? So it's just right stick switching, basically anticipating your opponent's move. Right stick anticipate secondary press. Right stick anticipate secondary press. What I would say is that ideally you should not press with your center backs, right? Um, unless the only exception when you should press with your center back, right, is maybe on counter attacks or in situations like this. When you have the ball at your back line, right? For an example here like this, you can see how I press with my center back, how I win the ball with my Lukaku. Now, what I do here is when he makes this turnaround, right, and he makes this pass, I use my next player switch indicator, right, because it helps me to know which player I'm going to switch to next if I use my L1 to switch, right? So you can also use your L1 to switch. So now I can see my next player indicator on Lukaku, right? Now I secondary press with him. And then just like that, win the ball. So let's look at another clip here. Now my opponent makes this pass. Now, basically, like I said before, anticipate what your opponent might do, right? So I can see Hughes Mbappe on a run here, right? So what I do is switch my cursor to my right back, right stick switch. Remember, um, switch my cursor to my right back, and now I track that run. That's basically just running with Mbappe in case he wants to play a triangle or an off-field ball, right? So now he sees that that option is gone, right? So he passes to a striker. Now his striker is with the ball. I don't want to rush in with my center back. Why? Because if I rush in with my center back, he can just make, maybe if I rush in like this, he can just make this pass here, trigger a run with him, and then all of a sudden he's here. My center back is out of place. So what I do is just kind of stall a bit. You see why I did with Lukaku. I kind of stalled and then anticipated he was going to make this pass. So you can see here right now, my right stick switch to Hernandez. Because I anticipated he was going to make that pass, I right stick switch to Hernandez, just basically running backwards. You can see it. This is basically my whole what I was doing, running back with Hernandez, and then that's it. Right. So you need to just anticipate your opponent's moves and then switch your cursor. That easy, that fast, right? You also need to know when to rush in, when to press aggressively, right? Sometimes, like for this example, I didn't want to rush in with my center back because there was a lot of space in behind, right? If I rush in, he can just make a few passes and then his attacker is way over here and my defenders are out of place, right? So you need to know when to rush in, you need to know when to just stay back and just anticipate. Now, my opponent has a corner here. I'm going to show you how I defend this corner, right? So he passes shots. You can see I'm immediately closing down my Lauren James. He passes, switch cursor. Now, in this instance, you don't need to switch to your right stick, right? You can just use your L1 because remember, closest to ball is what you put, right? So the ball is literally with him. So if you just press your L1, it goes to another. So you need to know when to use your right stick, when to use your left L1, right? So with Hernandez right now, secondary pressing with my other player, right? So that secondary pressing L1 crossing is basically just bringing two people to be on him, right? Now, another reason why you can do that, why you should use that two people on him is that you can use the other person that the cursor is on, right, to go and mark passing lanes, to go and mark the person he might want to pass to. While secondary pressing is just basically going to follow the attacker like a zombie. He's just going to be on him, right? And then when he gets close enough, you can now switch with your L1. Remember, switching with your L1 while secondary pressing takes you to the person you were secondary pressing with, right? So it basically just you're just swarming him, right? That's what I'm doing. You can see the cursor changing, secondary pressing, cursor changing, secondary press, cursor changing, secondary press, till I win the ball. Right. So this is how you want to defend ideally, and then from there we have a goal. Now, this is going to be my final clips, right? Um, I'm basically just showing you another defending, right? This is a match I played yesterday. All right, so you can see here he passes ball to his Ronaldinho, right? His left winger, and you can see me. I don't switch to my right back. I'm still with my right winger. Like I said before, I like to press with my wingers. Now he passes the ball down here. And what do? I now switch to my right back and then I try to cut this passing lane. Now, the reason I can do that is because I know that if he tries to pass, I'll intercept it. If he doesn't, say he changes his mind and he tries to go down this way, right? My Thuram is still fast and strong enough to catch up with him, right? So that's why I don't rush in here. I just predict passing lanes, right? Predict passing lanes. You can just be moving this way, but I don't rush in. No, and then just like that, you win the ball. Now, lose the ball again. You can see me still pressing with my attackers. Still pressing with my attackers. He passes the ball. Now, I do the same thing. Just to do the same thing. Brought my Thuram from here all the way here in case he wants to make that passing lane. And you can also see my secondary press. Right? Now, followed him around with my attacker. Brought in the secondary press. And just like that, they become so indecisive, they make mistakes. Right? When you press aggressively like this, you are always just going to be winning the ball. You are going to have majority of the possession. And anytime your opponents have the ball, they literally do not know what to do because your defense is so compact. So basically that is it on aggressive defending. That is basically it how to defend on FC25. Just keep on practicing. Remember, it doesn't happen overnight. So just keep on practicing, keep on applying these tips. Um, always just keep on practicing. If you stuck around this far, thank you so much for watching this video up to this point. Thank you for the support. Just ask that you like this video. You comment any other thing you might need help with. I'm here to help. And then subscribe to this channel. Remember, on the road to 500 subs. Peace.